breakfast? Yeah, there's breakfast and, oh, yeah. All right.
Okay.
And then just come have a seat. Lots of food, because I don't know what else is going to happen to it throughout the day. I guess my first period will get it. If y'all need it. All right. Well, thank y'all for coming this morning. And is it okay if I record?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Gomez and everyone here this morning. So what we're going to look at, first of all, we're going to do the writing and our common assessment, which was from the editing and revising. So I'll print that out to look at. So before we really dwell into that, why don't you take a couple of minutes and just look at it and see what you notice from the information that you've got there. The questions that we have, the things that the kids did well on, the things that we need to work on. Go ahead. And I think you were here when we took that test, weren't you? The common assessment for the sophomores. I think so. Oh yes, I'm sorry. This is my practicum student. And this is Jeanette. This is Mr. Gomez.
My name is Jeanette.
The common assessment.
And one thing I noticed is the two of the red areas down here are things we haven't, they're both over persuasion, which we haven't even covered yet.
Yes, and that's one thing we're going to look at later on. I thought was real interesting, if you look on, sorry, my paper. This is all the paper I had at home, just notebook paper. But I did a comparison analysis with the 3 of our tests, and I think it's interesting to see kind of how our kids answered on those particular questions. Out of
Is
your
that on the back page there?
It's on the second page. It's the TEAC score comparison.
Oh, I got you.
What are these comparing those?
It compares
Questions
each
in
question. It compares each question. So question number 2, it shows the correct answer and how many of each of our students chose that correct answer. Which I think is kind of cool when you look at it. Just showing what they're answering, maybe what they're missing.
Go ahead.
When it comes to the answer choices that they have. But on that one, how many do you have for pre-AP? How many? Out of your 124. So that's pretty good. So you have 80 there. And this was the first time that we took an editing and revising common assessment. So, and usually they score pretty low on that, on average.
This makes me think, though, when we look at the editing and revising assessments over the summer, if we make any changes to them, that this one doesn't need to come right now, because several of these questions are about argumentative essays, which we haven't even talked about. That's the 6 weeks when we get back from Christmas.
We had that conversation. We're really kind of spinning our wheels here, and the data is it's what they bought into this year.
Yeah.
So, and we are going to get to redo those editing and revising, right?
Well, we
Yeah.
can at any point,
We probably should, new teaks, let's go ahead and start over and reboot.
Yeah, because well, the new teak's coming out, we'll have to totally revamp everything. But
Probably a good opportunity.
I don't know if we'll have to completely.
no, because I
redo
was gonna say, because we're gonna just looking at,
But I think the revising and editing one never really aligned with what we do for 6 weeks. They just randomly picked out passages from the STAR test and created these tests, not necessarily based on the order that we do things in. Which I guess it gives us a good idea of what we need to work on.
but like I said, we haven't touched any of those things, and the things we have touched, they're on a totally different. So it might be advisable to read.
Now that number 8, using a variety of sentence structures, I think that's definitely something, that's an indication of something.
And that surprises me because as freshmen, we covered compound sentences and complex compound. So it's just not sinking in.
Do we have that question? Looks like a majority of.
Number 8.
We did the 3-2-1, that little activity with this passage, and so we talked about that question. And there was something interesting about the choices. Like they picked one. What
The
is
majority of the ones they picked was correct answers. Majority of them picked G. Well, it's 50. It was half and half. They picked G and wait. The correct answer is G, and they picked A. Yeah. A and B.
I mean, the numbers are just all over the place on that one.
They really
like
are.
saying that they just really don't know.
It looked like it. Yeah, or a guess, because a lot of them picked A or F or C or H. It's only
Yeah.
12% picked that one.
So it was really between A and B on that question. I worked at the courage, my initial splash instantly put all my worries to rest. The experience was invigorating. Or I finally worked with courage and my initial splash instantly put my worries to rest. The experience was invigorating.
They just don't understand sentence fragments.
No.
And run-on sentences.
They don't, and the punctuation part too. So that's something we can look at. But that's something we're gonna be doing, it hasn't been done yet. So that's a gap we'll fix. What's something else that you noticed?
I did have several kids when we looked at this data with them talk about how they feel like their hardest questions are the ones where they have to take sentences and put them in a paragraph, like, based on the structure. Does this sentence fit at the end of, after the first sentence, or, what kind of question we're talking about? And then there was one question that said, none of these are correct, or Kelly should not add this sentence to the paragraph. And I had so many kids say that they've been told never to pick that response. So even though they felt like it might have been right, they picked a different one just based on that information.
I wonder why they've been told that.
I don't know, but
Somewhere along the lines.
that's a test taking thing that maybe we can fix just by telling them that
Yeah.
they should never assume that they're not supposed to pick a certain.
Well, and the other thing too, a lot of them, they read the directions and they're like, oh, I don't have to read the whole passage. And so when it comes to the whole context of, when it's a thesis or if it's which sentence, they don't read the whole thing. And I don't know where that came about either.
I think you're right, that's a problem.
It is a problem because they do have to read the whole passage in order to get the context of the whole, where to put the thesis statement or where to rearrange the paragraphs or even the sentences. But so we have 3 areas off of this one, and like you said, it is persuasion, the argumentative, and a lot of these tend to be argumentative or persuasive.
Because they're kids.
And so I mean, in the past, when I've looked at tests, that's the majority of the pieces they pick for us to use. And so that's something we need to really kind of, which we're gonna do it, we just haven't done it yet. So it's one of those, we'll fill it in eventually. So what do we need to do to fix the gap that we have here
For which one?
for any of these three that we're scoring low on? The sentence compound structures. We're gonna work on that, but what are we gonna do for that? What should we do?
I don't know, I think we need to.
Come on in here this week.
More than
Hey, come on in. There's breakfast. Help yourself.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think we need to hit it more than one time instead of just talking about it, doing some little activity, and then like moving on.
He's waiting.
Yes. Sorry, the sun comes in really strongly in the mornings.
Like a wrecking ball.
Oh. That's okay. We got it, Brett.
Here.
I got a bunch.
Does everyone have
I have it
your
all.
paper? It's been a morning.
Now we shuffle papers.
All right. So we're looking at the common assessment data off of when we took the edits and revising. Just seeing where we need to fix, the gaps that we have.
The structure, we talked about doing something where we take an essay apart and have them.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. Have them, so like if we cut it up, they have to like put it back in the right order. And a lot of them can't.
No, they can't.
No, they don't.
And I actually have something that I did when I was at Tascosa where I took an essay and cut it apart and there's blanks for it. So I already have that done.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
And I think, I don't know, when those two things, I think it needs to be, we need to do several things, not just like, okay, we're gonna do this little activity.
Well, we need to go back over the different types of sentences. I mean, I know as freshmen, we go over that, but it's not obviously sinking in.
Well, yeah, they just don't get it. They're not taught sentence structure like they used to be.
No.
Like we were, so.
And then it's not like you have to say, okay, this is the predicate, this is the direct object. It's not naming it, but it's knowing what it is. Right. And so I think that they get that confused, where they're not sure what to do with the sentence.
I'm still trying to understand or learn the anatomy of an English classroom, but is that easy to do, and then like I do now, or a bell work, is that easy to do?
I mean, you could do it as a bell work, but they're not gonna get it.
Not just simply as a bell work, but
Yeah.
along with, or when they're reading and they have the 10-minute reading time, say, can you pick out,
You can't do
Yes.
that.
You can do that.
is
I
that
don't think
helpful?
right now they would be.
Yeah,
No.
they wouldn't be able to figure
I
it out.
think
right
they
now.
would be able to pick out a sentence connected by a comma and a conjunction, most of them, right? But they would pick out other kinds of sentences that had conjunction.
Yes.
So it's just,
Maybe
They
that's
have
a way
to-
to keep it ongoing, I don't know.
Yeah. We have to go back over the basic. What is it, complex sentence, what's a simple sentence, what's a,
but that is a good idea to have
Yeah.
them look for it while they're reading.
but if we do it,
Maybe
if we do it all by itself, that's great.
You are an expert.
But one thing I've noted, if you just pick it out and you just do a worksheet on it, they don't get it. They don't associate it with anything else. If it's just independent.
Right.
So doing that with a reading would be really good. Helping them to associate it with something else. What else do you notice? Or is there any other gap that we need to look at? I think number 8 was the lowest one out of all of them. And then number 4.
Oh yeah, that's simple structure.
Yep. And the audience purpose, the author's purpose, that's another really big one. Which of course that does go to persuasion, but even if it's not persuasion, they still have a hard time, I find, with author's purpose.
I feel like that's what that question will always be related to
Mhm.
though on the test is persuasion. Because the other author's purposes are kind of, they're not as, cut and dry to me as persuasion.
They do.
persuasion.
But even on like the reading passages, they have author's purpose. And they score fairly well on that one, but still that's something, I know,
What was that question? The author's
number
purpose?
2,
What
did
is
I
it?
give you a test?
No, but that's okay. What question is that?
Number 4? No, number 2 and number 4.
Kelly wants to add a more effective transition, which that surprised me that there were 2 questions about transitions that they didn't seem to understand, and I thought that would be a pretty
Simple thing.
simple.
But I think even like,
How
They're
is
not-
that author's purpose? Like, which of the following sentences should be added before sentence 12 to help readers effectively transition from the second to the third paragraph?
it's organizing structure is what that one is. Oh, it's not author's purpose on that one.
Oh.
It's appropriate audience for the organizing of structure. No, it's audience and purpose.
Oh, that
It's
includes
the-
organizing.
Yeah, it's the organizing structure of that. But somewhere I don't think they're taught that to do the transitions between paragraphs,
Well, I think they're taught transition words,
but not,
but not transition sentences that help them to transition without saying next
Right.
or in addition
Second.
to. That's all they're taught. Like
Yeah.
that's what transition is to them. And so a sentence, they're like, what?
maybe that's something we should
How do you
look
think
at
about
is
it?
transitional statements.
That's not even transitional statements, I don't think. That's just a transitional thought, like these sentences are. Well, no, because this is perhaps more serious, though. So that's like I'm thinking what came before that was less serious. So maybe transition statements would work or would help.
Is there anything else that you notice from this that we might need to address?
Oh, that's funny because number 1 is transition words, and they got 93% on that one.
They're real good at that.
Got that.
What's number 3? Oh, it's replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get that one. They did really well on 7 too. What's 7? What change should be made to sentence 8? Oh, that's just it. They better do good on that one.
Yeah.
But how many of them?
There
Yeah.
were kids that missed the spelling one.
Yeah.
You guys.
Yeah. But how many kids actually use a dictionary?
I didn't have very many.
I
Except
put
for the class
dictionaries
set.
on my desk, so they're more likely to use them if they're like
Mhm.
Sitting
But
on
even
their
with
desk.
that, they still didn't.
Well,
I-
I have some, like my pre-AP kids too,
Oh yeah. Pre-AP kids are always gonna, and they'll ask you if they're not out.
and they don't even need them.
No.
Come in and double check.
Yep, triple check. Go back and look this up again.
They do, but the regular kids, for some reason, they don't
No.
take the effort to look it up.
That's too much work.
But they should all get that one if they would just look it
I
up.
know, that's what I told them. That's like a gimme question.
It really is.
You're
Well,
missing
really,
that
this whole
question,
test,
and
if
that's
you
scary.
use a dictionary, the majority of it can be answered with the
That's
dictionary. And I've even told them there's a cheat sheet in the very beginning of the dictionaries. It tells you the grammar, punctuation. In the Webster's dictionary, it has a whole list of like
that.
parts of speech, grammar, punctuation, what's a run-on sentence, what's a conjunction. Tells you all of that. And they did really well on 9. What's 9? If any change should be made, that's just word replacement. Well, that's good. So we have some good areas and we have some areas of weakness. We have 4 really strong areas and some areas that we need to look at. Okay. And then Mary, there's this, I thought it was kind of cool. It shows the comparison between our classes and what they chose for each single question to see what, like, it breaks it apart, so maybe we're teaching something different than somebody else, which I think is kind of good. Because sometimes I may be lacking in my understanding, or not understanding, but my instruction on how to teach a particular concept that you guys may have better. Because like on number 4, Sherilyn had 79% of hers guess the correct answer.
Yes.
I'll choose the correct answer. But we only had 50%.
Well, that's partly because the
Pre-AP.
It would be interesting. I wish we could kick them out.
You can.
And
Yeah.
I think
Then-
that I have that uploaded in our file.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for some reason.
Yeah, the next time I mean, I can choose just the classes,
Oh, you can.
and then it'll give us, because I did that last year, it gives more of an accurate, because with the
This makes
pre-AP,
me look like an awesome.
the pre-AP is always skew they always skew the data.
They do.
But even so, but look, I mean, on some of them, like on number 2, we were all together, even with the pre-AP, 68, 70, 67.
That's question number 2?
Question number 2,
Oh, that wasn't sentence.
that was it.
What was there one distracting answer on that one? That random. I always like to look at that. That's always interesting. I always say you have to think like a test maker. Like,
Because there is going to be one that sounds pretty good, but it's not exactly right. So they chose, for mine it was, they chose G. Perhaps more serious though.
oh, but they really all over it though, because you have 12% at A, 12% or F, 12% G, and then 7%. So they were the people who didn't know were guessing.
Yeah.
I think. And it could be, honestly, I think sometimes those require more concentration, those questions do, because you have to have an understanding of the entire essay. And so for some kids, I think this is the question they're most likely to guess
Yes.
on. Yeah.
Well,
Because
and-
it requires the most thinking.
And again, they've been taught somewhere along the way that they don't have to read the whole passage.
You probably didn't read the whole passage.
And so that's probably why.
I mean, that kind of makes me think that they did just guess on that one.
What about
to some
on,
degree.
what was the other one? 4?
4 was one.
Kelly is considering whether or not, was it 4? Yeah. Whether or not she should add the following supporting detail to the 4th paragraph.
That's the one I had that so many kids say they didn't pick J because somebody told them that would never be the choice.
This somebody really is messing up our.
Yeah.
I had more than one kid tell me that somebody told them that would that
That
they
would
should
never be
never
the
pick
answer.
As
that
a
one.
test taking strategy?
That they, and even though they wanted to pick it, that they made themselves pick a different answer.
Huh. Well, that's something I
It
guess we
wasn't
need.
the same one that said never choose the one that.
But that's the same question.
Yeah.
That Kelly
Oh,
should not add
okay.
this
I
sentence
got
to
you.
the
I got you.
paragraph.
Well, I guess that's something we just really need to drill into them this year.
Yeah. Everything that you learned before, just ignore it. Don't.
Because it's really hard if something had been taught, like, even in with my freshman class, the climax. They're like, we were told that it could happen early in the story. I'm like, no. So, kind of going against some earlier things that's been taught. Anything else?
I think that's about it.
Okay. So we have a plan to reteach those low skills, which is good, moving forward. So hopefully, and then maybe reevaluate having this particular test next year first. So moving it later after we do persuasion. Okay. So, if we want to move on to the writing, unless y'all have anything else for that. So we got the key misunderstandings for that. We're going to look at how to combat those 3 low pieces in the future. We have a plan. We're gonna RTI. Okay.
On the writing, I called Lisa because I still can't find where we're supposed to upload our 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. So, when she called me back, I'll let you know.
We put our scores in, right?
Yeah, everybody's put them in. Thank you.
But we don't have. Yes, we're good on that.
Check
Good
it.
job.
You got it.
We learned something from this writing assignment. In the past, we've never used the fiction short story to gather our numbers, and it was horrible, and I won't ever do it again. I don't mind writing it, but that one is not the one I'm gonna grade.
No.
Because first of all, it hurts kids' feelings when you grade them honestly, because they put their heart and
Yeah.
soul into those short stories.
So when they don't do so good.
And they are
very
excited about
upset.
them. It's the first thing we write of the year, and it just crushes some of their souls
It
to
does.
get a 50 on something that they worked
Yeah.
for 3 days on, and they were excited about it. And
And they have I think they have a really great storyline.
Next, some of them will take 15 pages
Yes.
to write their short story,
Yeah.
and I don't want to grade 15-page essays.
so we
No.
can. I mean, I think it's important that we write them, but I think we can take a smaller writing sample
think so.
at the beginning of the year that we can use.
I think even if we do like a short answer off of one of the fiction stories,
Something else.
Something
or
like that.
something
Yeah.
with poetry where they have to, but I have a problem with even with this rubric, but that's me. I think this rubric is too, and of course my scores were high. I was nice because they,
I mean, I read that and like went off the rubric, and I'm like, well, you didn't.
I know, and
a lot of
I,
distracting errors, so I guess we're at a 2 now.
yeah,
Like,
well, and I, because it is the first, I have some really, really low kids, and they were really, really excited.
been more generous.
And I didn't want to break their little hearts on the first essay that they wrote. Yeah.
But then on the other hand, if you're easy with them, then it's not an
How's that preparing
accurate.
them for
I know.
the start
It's
test?
not accurate feedback for them, so that they know that they're at this point they're thinking, oh, I'm awesome, I'll do this again.
But
And maybe-
most of mine scored 2s and 3s,
So did mine.
and then I had quite a few 1s,
We have 40% 2s and 36%.
and then 4s. How many were?
18%.
The 4s are too high.
Right.
Yeah.
Because on the actual test, we might have, I don't know, 15 kids or
See,
less.
and that's why I
score a 4 on the actual test.
And that's why I have a problem with this right here, because I think it's too easy.
I do too. It was hard. I don't know. I just had a hard time with these stories. I hated. I usually enjoy reading short stories, and it was like torture to me because I just.
What's the next one without getting too far off topic?
It's a
It's like,
literary writing.
yeah,
or
it's
literary response.
yeah, you make like a response to a play or something is what we thought it was meaning, like you make a response to something. And it deals with drama, so that's why. Literary response.
Ours might look slightly.
Write interpretive responses to a variety of literary
There we go.
text and media. Provide evidence from the text.
So we're gonna edit that. We're gonna edit that just a little bit to fit what we've been working on with poetry.
Or we do it with drama or poetry.
Poetry. I think we're gonna do it with that last assignment that we did with poetry.
Oh, that big chart.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have the individual kids write on that. based on what they
Yeah.
understand.
That'll be good, because I, like you said, I had a problem with,
It was just hard. I
Yeah.
don't like it.
I didn't either. So I pulled, and these are some of mine. This is a medium, like a 3.
This would be a 3.
Yeah, this one's a 3. And I can't remember what this one was.
It's pretty long.
It's actually,
A 4 or 3.
I think it was it's either 3 or 4, and this one I
It
think,
starts out good. Sitting in the emergency room, and 9 years old, sat alone as she felt herself
this one was the 4.
physically
Let's
tore
say,
her heart
mine.
out of her
This one was
chest.
the 4. And this other one was, oh, it's a continuing the story. This one was, I think, a 2. No, mine was a 2. And this was a high two. And then
That's a 4, right? Gotta be a 4.
Is that one from
There was a
DAEP?
girl who lived next
No.
to the forest.
this one was a total 1.
Who lived next to the forest?
Yeah, that's what it says.
So close, in fact, the forest was her bedroom.
Yes. Some of them are like really extruded. I mean, they're hard to read.
Yeah.
And they're, well, this one, he did not. This is
Fair.
soft. No, he did not.
Okay, so what's the difference between the 4 and the 1? I mean, the 4 and, yes.
4 and the 1 is so, it's so obvious. So obvious. But the 4, like, I didn't give very many 4s, but the ones I did give, they were really, like this one, the carousel never
Using-
No,
stops turning.
Is that us?
Okay, I gotta get 15 minutes of more video some other time.
we can keep going.
No, because we need to go to class.
Yeah.
Class.
I do have to go.
No, you don't.
All right, well, thank you.
Hold on, I have to read this.
I know.
It won't take long. It's only like 4 lines.
Have you guys watched the movie or read the book Ready Player One?
Mm-hmm.
That's this, the first one. The travel to the future to resolve conflict. I'm not somebody who watches those kinds of movies, but for some
Curtis
reason I was
is a
on the plane
person.
and watched it. It was awesome.
It's actually a really good
Really?
movie.
Curtis.
Okay.
Well, this is the story. Curtis is a person that ain't friendly. He liked food. He hates school / school related stuff that means all teachers.
That's a song, Curtis Ain't Friendly.
His story begins now.
I'm thinking
Eat school,
he might be
eat school,
talking
home
about
dies.
himself.
You guys have a great
Goes
day.
back to
too,
school,
thank you.
gets in trouble, goes home, falls asleep.
But you know what?
That's his story.
Is that him though? Is he writing his own story?
No, I will tell you,
Do you know who this is?
100% you got something
I
from him.
know.
Oh my goodness.
You know who he is?
Oh, I had it
Yeah.
last year,
Yeah.
yes.
I
But
was
you-
like, well, you turned something
You
in.
got some sentences from him. Yay for
And
you.
I was like, what's this C dot thing? It's a smiley face and a sad face.
Hey, that is like, that's a praise because I didn't get squat from him all year. When it came to writing, he refused to do anything.
I mean, this is the first thing that I've gotten from him. I'm pretty sure he has a 13.
On the STAR test, because he was in my group, when it came to the essay, he didn't even write anything on the STAR test.
Man, I can't believe he's a real peach. Real fun. But you had him,
Oh, I gave him.
and you gave him to
Yes.
me, so
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, if you don't mind, we'll just do continuation of this talk next Monday.
Sure, and we'll
If
just
that's okay.
pretend like, tell us what the last word somebody said was. Start with that last word.
Oh, we'll just start talking again. Because I can print out the individual stuff. I just didn't.
Please.
I just didn't want to.
Hello.
Oh, good.
We're
Unfortunately, I'm
videotaping
not
again.
good.
Here.
Can we?
Oh, much better.
Okay. I'll edit that part out. Okay. Well, let's see here. So we're looking at the data from the Common Assessment over Poetry. And they really, considering 185 passed at 70%.
185.
185 out of 266 kids that took it, 185 passed. The average score was 76, which actually is not a bad score. I know they want us to be an 80, but
We're close.
I know. And so what I printed out is I just wanted to look at the question by question. And so we can see we've got the ones that are in dark are the ones that we're not performing very well at. But let's look at our kudos first. 6, dictionary and glossary. Woohoo!
Yes, they can use a dictionary.
Good thing. And symbolism and allegory and illusions, they got that really well. That's
Good.
beating number 5.
Oh, good.
So we do
What's
another
that
one.
question? Oh, what's the
I
fox?
know
a
something
symbol of?
symbolized, yeah.
A fox
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
a horses.
What symbolizes free or
And the fox symbol is a symbol
Oh,
of.
there we
So that's good though. They get symbol. Yay.
Which we had just worked on that.
Yeah.
Is a good thing. I mean, well, not a good thing. They should get it. I mean, we've been working on symbols for a long time. And then number 7 was really good. It was 94%, and that was inferencing into drawing conclusions. What did that question say? That one said, which quotation can best be described conveying the idea of freedom? So that's good. That's a really good.
That's the horse one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really, I mean,
The second poem is harder for them, the one about trust. Or isn't that the title of it?
yes, trust,
That one is harder.
the trust poem. So
Over
that
the
starts with
years.
question 6. But even with that, the first 2 questions, my son, I'm sorry, he's going to a Halloween party and he's
stressed up. Got it.
he's dressed up.
No,
You're dressed up. He's in his Spider-Man costume. Sorry, he's just over there on the floor. But the second poem starts with question number 6. But even with that, the first 3
It
questions.
starts with question number 6.
Question number 6. Right? Yes, question
Well.
6.
They did better on that one than they did the first one.
Oh, yeah.
So it looks like, what do we do? Well, even that, the second one, there's even 94% on question 11, which is drawing conclusion and inferencing. And that's usually a hard thing for them to get. So
Yeah.
they did good on that, which is yay.
It's funny because the question above that 10, explain the function of symbolism. After they did so well on the symbolism question
Oh, yeah.
earlier,
Number 10.
what is that question?
That
That may be
question,
the one about the horses being.
now the tiger. In lines 1 through 4, the tiger is a symbol of the speakers.
Probably because it says it's a symbol of the speakers.
And yeah, they have a hard time still with who is, when they're reading a poem, understanding the difference between the author and the speaker. At least, I don't know if y'all's kids are, but mine are, because they'll say, what is the speaker? I don't get who's talking. Yeah.
A lot of times it is. That's
Yeah.
But that's not too bad. Our problematic areas were
Number 12.
number
No,
12.
9.
Number 9, which was, what was the question on that one? And we had 61% on
Analyze,
that
make
one.
inferences, and draw conclusions about theme and genre.
But you know what I'm finding? They are still having a really hard time with theme.
It's the hardest thing for them to do,
Yeah.
even though they can make their own theme statements, like when we did that poetry. But when they have to pick it out of something where there's a distracting answer, that's when it's hard.
That is really hard, and I'm even finding it, because my pre-AP class today wanted to argue about the answer. I was like, it has nothing, I mean, anyways, the question I had, I was like, this poem has nothing to do with that. We're like, but last year we were taught to go deeper. I'm like, you can go deeper, but you have to make sure it's backed up by the text. And if it's not going to be the answer.
Yeah.
And they have a hard time figuring that out. So, but we're going to be, I want to do info text though, not info text, but
Yeah, we're done with everything that's got a theme.
I know, that's what I was going to say, but we need to come back to it before testing. Yeah, because nothing else we're going to do is going to have a theme. No, because is the informational text even too after we come back from Christmas?
It's persuasion.
Yeah, that's not anything. Not going to be a theme.
What does that question say right there in line
Which one?
14? Number 9.
Yeah, we're not, in line 14, the significant theme of the poem, that the birds are a feeder because this shows they are.
Okay.
So again, it's just, I really think that's what we need to come back to is the.
Well, that particular it has like these lines at the very bottom that completely change. Like the tone changes right there, and they don't see that because they don't understand. I don't think they understand that whole poem a lot of times. And if you don't understand it, then you can't figure out what the theme is.
Right.
Yeah, because they're tied together. A lot of times, I mean, they're going to have the questions stem together.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they quite get that. The one question is going to help you with another question. But Not all the times, but sometimes. So, but out of the second poem, that's actually the only one they really did poorly on besides
Number 12 was 62.
12. Was that
Yeah,
structure?
That's the one that has the choices, even about rhyme scheme.
Question is, in the last 3 lines, the tone of the poem shifts.
Oh yeah, it's the tone shift.
Oh, that's question number 12?
That's question 12.
And they just don't see that.
And that is a kind of hard poem to get.
If they talk about it out loud, because a girl needed help, and I was like, tell me what this is about. You know, I told her to summarize it. And she started talking about it out loud and was able to get that that was the right answer. But they're not going to do that on the test. But none of them really sit there and like think about it in their head and try to like say it to themselves, you know?
So
So
what is question number 10?
question 10 is the lines 4. It's the symbol one. The speakers, and I think it is the speakers. The symbol for the tone. What? Speakers. And I think it's just they have a hard time with the speaker. They can get the symbol, but I think it confuses them when you throw in speaker. But out of the second, I mean, they did better on the second poem than they did the first poem. Because on the first poem, they missed, I mean, if you look at it, they got 1 question correct. Really, overall.
Yeah.
One that's an 80, and the rest of them were all in 60s. No, 2. I forgot about 80.
So what's 2, 3, and 4?
2. Sorry, you want a test?
No.
2 is in the poem, the words, it was ordinary morning, function as a way of. In the poem, the words, it was an ordinary morning, function as a way of. And I think the word function throws them off. Perhaps it's contrasting.
confusing question.
It is. Something unexpected that happened in the poem. It's the word function that's throwing them off. And I really, out of all the other tests, I don't think I've ever heard it worded quite that way. In the poem, the words an ordinary function.
So it was ordinary morning, and then something different happened or extraordinary.
Yes, because it contrasted it. But that, I think, is probably, I don't either. But I think it's just the way it's worded.
Okay, so what was 3?
3 is one theme. It's theme again.
Isn't that amazing how many theme questions and symbol questions in just those 2?
But you know what? And not even with poetry, not just with poetry, but even with the fiction, it'll ask you about the theme too. So that's probably something we really need to come back and address. So number 3 and number 4 we did really poorly on, which is in lines 9 through 17, the poet uses descriptive language that it simplifies, emphasizes. It emphasizes next to. So it's figurative language, descriptive language.
But it's why they use it.
The poet uses figurative language that emphasizes.
One thing, with our, because they have the release 2019 test, we should take that poem that's in that test and just have them do all these things to that before the test. Kind of like we did with the posters, but
That could be part of our review.
that's what I would do. Because this
So-
is by far, like when we looked at these over the summer, poetry was our lowest scores.
And I think it's just the kids have a hard time because they think it's so subjective that it's like there's lots of interpretations for it. But when it comes down to it, what is textually based, they don't get that.
Well, and they read through it and they don't really understand it. And I told them when I had them write it in the margins, which it's amazing how the ones that needed to opted not to do that for the extra points. And I'm like, if you read it through once, the people who make that test, they design some answer choices just for you that are going to get you every time because you understand it.
Right.
And they make those just for you to be them.
Well, and I always tell them too, you have to look because they forget to look at the title.
I know, because the theme of the other one,
It ties to the title.
yeah.
Well, and
It's called trust.
Yeah.
What do you think that's about?
I know, but they don't look at the title. They go right into reading it,
Yeah.
and then they try to answer the questions after reading it once instead of read it for understanding,
That,
then go back and read it for the
like,
analyzation.
poetry is kind of like a puzzle. You don't solve a puzzle
Exactly.
reading
That's
it
what
one
I
time or doing anything one time.
Yeah.
You have to study it. But they don't want to do it. You can try to get them to do it, and they just kick and scream.
And I find the pre-P ones will do it. for the
Yes,
most
they
part.
will, but they don't really
But
need to.
but the ones that need to do it, they
They
won't.
won't.
No, my whole 7th grade class, you think a single one of them did it? Did any of that stuff? Nope. They
Nope.
just turned it in.
I had 2 out of my 8th period.
They're like, I missed 6 questions. I'm like, huh. You could have used those extra points, and you could have answered some of the questions, right? It's crazy.
So moving forward,
We need to come back around and
we do
talk about themes, symbols, and tone. Theme.
symbols and tone. And it's a hit or miss on the symbols because they did really well on some of it. But I think it's the word choice on those questions. And I do not want to teach subtests. I do not. But at the same time, they have to understand what. And maybe we need to do more of like a quick write or a quick question, or like an exit ticket that asks, formulated in this way. Yeah. Just the word, so they get familiar with the wording.
I wish we could come up with a way where we could still like constantly be reviewing this, even though we're doing nonfiction.
Yeah.
And I know it would take a lot of effort to make like little bell ringers or something where they had a poem and a multiple choice question. But,
Well, see, that's what I'm doing with Common Lit right now with my grade P, and they only have. It has 4 questions.
And but those questions are different than these.
They are, but what I'm
questions, and
saying is we could
they're
take the
significantly more
poem, like they have, like even with Langston Hughes has like some 3-4 line poems. Maybe we could give them one of that with just one multiple choice question.
Like even if it was on a piece of paper, just
Uh-huh.
like a bell ringer thing, but I don't know who wants to.
I don't know, I wouldn't
wrap
mind.
back around and do this right before the
Just
test.
review before the test. It's fine.
Well, and I honestly, I don't know about you guys, but the kids are done with poetry.
Oh yeah.
We
Done.
might have spent just a little bit. too
Yeah,
long.
we might have stretched this one a little too far.
And they're done.
But maybe they did better. I would like to see our scores from last year because we've been given the same test for like this is the 3rd year.
Yeah, some kid came up to me and said, this says 17, 18.
We'll go find the kids that were in here. And
You know, I
17,
could pull
18.
up. Yeah, I can pull up the scores. I'm pretty sure from last year. Let me look. Because I'm pretty sure I could do that.
Because it would be nice to see if we did
I know,
better
that's
after.
kinda what I'm curious.
Because honestly, last year we talked about theme and symbols. We talked about all that stuff with short stories and literary nonfiction, and we just did poetry for maybe like that.
a week.
And so it'll be
Versus
interesting
6.
to see
We
If they're better.
This 6 weeks? We've spent the entire 6 weeks on
I know,
poetry.
but didn't we start out the first few weeks like still in short stories?
I
or
think the
something?
first
Like the first week. And then we switched. So it's almost 6 weeks. Okay, so if I did TEAC
I think
score
we do.
comparison. Okay, so from 2000, it would be 18, 19, wouldn't it? So we look at TEAC's performance by.
Hello. Hey, you're on speakerphone.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're on my watch.
Is it the same number? What's the number on that test?
I'm
10
almost
point
done,
E.
and so we'll go home, I guess.
10.002.
Okay. You kind of have to, Kennedy. You have to.
Okay, it's giving me the information. I just gotta go.
But we can, after tonight's lesson, we can talk to our daddy and see what he thinks.
Okay, so I want to do.
Let's talk about it in a little bit. Can you come up to the room? Okay, because I'll
10
meet
point
y'all
E
there.
to. Oh, I went last year.
Well, it's gonna be cold out there. I think you should come up here until I get done.
Okay, bye.
Okay, so it's going to.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's live.
She doesn't want to go to
Oh.
lessons, or she doesn't want to do it.
She doesn't want to do it anymore. She's just tired. We'd never make her go. That's just, yeah.
Okay, so last year, it's not giving me, it'll give me the score, okay, this is the 10.002E, right?
10.002.
Just 002.
002,
Well,
okay.
it says en.10.00.
Okay, so it gives me the breakdown for each question.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Okay, so question one,
Uh-huh.
Leslie had 88 and you had an 82.
So basically the same.
Okay,
Exactly.
question number two, Leslie had a 57 and you had a 61. So it's
Oh, so
actually
we went
higher.
up.
Yeah.
Oh wait, so give me those numbers again. I'm gonna write them.
Okay, Leslie's was a 57
Okay,
and yours was a 61.
so that's like a 59.
So yeah. It was a lot higher on question number three, 73 and a 75.
So that's 74. Okay.
And questions, 4. Why does it jump to question 7 here? Oh, it's because it's going by teak. Okay. Question 4 is 77 and 73.
Oh, what's that?
75.
So, yeah.
Okay. Question 5, an 88 and an 82. Six, 57 and a 61.
Hold on.
Hold
we're,
on.
We're
Oh, sorry.
averaging.
85.
Okay.
Okay, what was the other
57 and a 61.
one? Is 59.
Wow.
Oh, we went way up.
Way up.
Yeah.
What in the world was that question?
That was question number 5?
What does that say?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 6. Question number 6.
Oh, that's 6. That would be even more. What was
Read the following dictionary entry. Which definition best matches the use of the word trust in line 1?
Well, it is. Isn't it teak 2? Is that what it says on that paper?
It says 1E.
Oh, 1E. Okay, then that one is somehow it's got off. Okay, so 1E is an 88 and an 82.
Oh, okay. That's an 85.
Okay, so the
question
next one's
6
So
is
what's-
85.
57 and a 61.
Wait, what's 7A?
Okay.
Because I feel like that might be wrong.
Peak 2 is number 9. So
So
that would be 59.
I'm looking at how this is done. Because it's just giving this question, so it doesn't have them like numbered. Let's go from the last question. I'll go backwards.
So 12.
Yes. So we go to it's 74 and 71.
That would be 72.5.
Okay. Then we're going to go with the next question, which is 11. 79 and 75. We went way up.
Are you sure that's the right question?
Well,
That just seems way different.
see, it's not. It just gives me like it runs the teak. TSC
So
count.
then what's the teak for that one?
Oh, hold on. Let me. So if I just do the teak for the number 11 is 3.
Yes.
Is that right? Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but there are a lot of 3s. I mean,
But if
there are
I'm going in
other
order of the
3s.
questions, if it's the same test from last year, it should be the same.
Like, number 2 is 32. It's
Sure, so it's number 7.
Okay. But if we're going in order, because there are 12 questions on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2. Oh. I told you wrong just now, sorry. Question 12 is 7A.
question
this
12
is not-
3A. Okay, so.
So this is according to TEAK, not according to question. Oh, well, that's good to know. Well, how do we do that now?
Not
Okay, well, you know what, let me pull up, because I just pulled this up really quickly. Let me pull up last year's, I'll do it in a different way, to pull up the actual test. Because it's not showing that. But if I do trend, yeah, the only way it'll do to the last year's is a comparison. And it's just showing me the T.
Oh. Yeah, that's not very dependable because, I mean,
No, it's not.
depending, we have some like 3As that have 62%, and then 3As that
So
have-
let me go back and look at that and see if I can find out like which question. Because I know I can pull up the data from last year. I just gotta figure out how. And then that would be better. So never mind. Sorry.
Isn't it interesting though, like, they can do 3A, and we got 62%, 3A, and we got 81%.
And I think it's the way the questions are worded. But overall, not, and this is just, here's what we were doing. That last sheet, this is the breakdown of the T.
Mhm.
So the teak that I was just now telling you, this, it's in order of this. I think, I'll go and find the comparison, because I think what I was just now reading out to you was this right here. Those percentages. But I'll go and look. And then I'll have that for you for Monday. And so we can compare.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now off to,
I hope that recorded.